Hey, lovely ones. Before you dive in, I've got something exciting to share. My brand new offering, The Knowing, a one-to-one mind-body coaching experience, is coming soon. If you want to be first in the know, the waitlist is open and the link is in the show notes. All right, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to Define, the podcast about the moments that shape us. I'm your host, Maddie, life coach, yoga teacher, and curious soul. Each episode, I speak to someone about a defining moment in their life, the kind that flipped their world upside down, cracked them open, and led them on a journey they never expected. This isn't about headlines or hero stories. It's about real life, real shifts, and what it takes to rebuild after the break. So let's get into it. Hi, Kat. Welcome to Define.
Hi.
Hello. How are you coming into our call today?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you. Feeling really good. It's a lovely day, so I'm very happy. Lovely sunny autumn day.
Yes, exactly. We've just had autumn equinox, so we're like coming into bedding in for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it was my favorite season, so I'm happy.
Oh, amazing. And before we get into anything today, obviously we're super excited to have you here. But I'd love it if you could just kind of give us a bit of an introduction to who you are.
Yes, sure. So I'm Kat. I live in Sheffield, and a little bit of who I am, or I'm trying to think. I love yoga, and that is how we've met, through yoga. I'm a brilliant yoga teacher. I'm a mum. I've got 2 kids, and I'm currently expecting my third. And I work as a freelance social media manager, and I also host workshops with Carve, which is a lovely independent jewelry business in Sheffield. So people come to me and I make their wedding rings with them, or other pieces of jewelry, but mainly wedding rings. So it's a really lovely, lovely job. So between doing that and looking after my kids, that's me really.
Yeah, it's enough on the plate. Yeah, and as you say, yeah, we met through yoga, which is really awesome and really nice way to, I'm sure you've experienced as well, like to bring together different people and different communities and things like that. So I'm so glad you've decided to come on and join me here today. So yeah, as we've kind of talked about before the recording, Define is all about defining moments or defining periods in kind of everyday people's lives, because I was just struck through my work as a coach about what incredibly amazing and diverse experiences people have lived through, and we don't always get to hear those stories. So I'd love it if you could just give us a little like flavor for what the moment or the period is you're bringing today.
Yes. So I was having a good think about what things have happened to me that I feel like have really defined who I am as a person, or have kind of like led me on a different pathway to what I originally thought I'd be on. And the one thing that really stands out to me is when I was, there's a lot of backstory to it, but basically when I was in my early 20s, I was heavily involved in a church, which actually I would more kind of say that it was a cult than a church. And yeah, no, basically, I was really involved in this, and it really changed my life, not for good at the time. And then out the back of it, it's like the years of healing that have come from that time period, and how that's really shaped and changed who I am as a person. So yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to talk my experience of a cult.
Yeah. Wow. And it's amazing to hear that, and I think this is the incredible thing about Define is like there's just no way I would have expected you to bring that from what we know of each other already. And so yeah, I'm so pleased that we can like explore this and talk about this a little bit more. And I'd love to start actually maybe just before that defining moment. So how does Kat end up kind of getting involved in the religious space?
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, I grew up in a home with just me and my mom growing up. She wasn't religious at all. I went to church a bit here and there with her, because I think that she maybe went through a period where she was interested in religion, but she wasn't religious. And it wasn't like a big part of my life, I'd say, growing up, like in the day to day. And then when I turned 18, I'd had a few kind of like spiritual and religious experiences, I'd say, in my teens, based on like friends who were involved in churches and things like that. And then I moved to Australia when I turned 18, and I Well, I was looking for like friends and community, and I didn't know anyone. I moved there as an au pair,
Mm.
which was amazing, but I was obviously really young, and this was before internet was what it is now, so I couldn't really contact my friends from home or anything, and, I joined this what is called a mega church, like, it's a huge, massive church in Australia with thousands of people, and this one is particularly really well known throughout the world. They've expanded, and they're, like, in every country, and lots of celebrities have been known to go to this church and stuff. So someone I knew from home was like, "Oh, you should go along and try that out, and it's a really good way to make friends." So I thought, "Okay, go on then. I'll give it a go." And I went and basically met a lot of people my age, very normal
Mm.
people. They didn't feel like they were overly religious or anything like that. So I really connected with it. I feel like I've always been a person that's been quite in touch with my spiritual side. So I've always been really intrigued by paranormal activity even, just things like that, or horoscopes and bigger picture and bigger
Oh, yeah.
purpose, and, like, always been seeking something a bit beyond, like, just there's more to the world and there's more to the universe, but I never really knew what that was, I
Mhm.
suppose. So I went along to this church in Australia, and yeah, and I had a bit of I'd say, like, a spiritual experience there. Now with hindsight looking back, I'm very quite aware of how these churches operate, in the sense of they try to create that experience for you. So the lighting, and because it's not like it's really hard to explain if you've not maybe experienced it. So it's not like a church that we would think in England where you go to with the
It's
steeple
quite
and with the
cold
bells
and
and
dark
everything.
and
Yeah,
cavernous, yeah.
exactly. It's normally yeah, exactly. It's usually like kind of like a really contemporary space with a big stage, lots of lighting. It almost feels like a concert rather a than a church. So it feels quite contemporary. And it orchestrates this feeling for you of like really emotive music and really charismatic leadership and people speaking from the stage about things that you can really connect to. And I think that's what they do really well is they draw you in and make it really normalize religion for people. So yeah, so I started going there and kind of got pulled into that experience. So do you want me to stop there and like, do you have any questions about that? Or because I'll just
No, it's so interesting. I'm desperate to hear about it, but I suppose just to yeah, to pause and reflect. So I'm hearing like, yeah, you were super young, you went to this completely new place and you were seeking that community and that connection, but also you had that existing kind of understanding that there is something more. And so like I'm kind of not surprised that you found kind of solitude or found that connection within those spaces. And
wow.
yeah, so I'm wondering, like at the time, at that first, you first started it being interested in it, and I'm curious because you said someone from back home suggested you went. So, what was, or was there any reaction from like your existing community back home about you kind of entering into this space?
Yeah, I think that it's hard really because I think a lot of my friends from back home, they definitely are like atheists and not interested in anything like that. But because this was 2006, so there wasn't Facebook at the time that everyone was using or social media in the same way. So I was almost like in my own little bubble in Australia doing my own little thing, and people weren't really seeing that this thing that I was involved in, if that does that
Hmm.
make sense? It's not like whereas I think if it was now, I would be putting that on my social media or I'd be WhatsApping my friends and telling them about it. But the reality was that it was few and far between that I was having conversations with people at home. So people weren't really aware that that was what I was involved in and they maybe knew that I'd started going to a church, but they hadn't realized the full depth of what it was what that meant. Does that make
Yes, yeah,
sense? So
yeah.
no one was really concerned or worried. Like my family, my mum just thought it was really nice that I made a nice community of people and made some friends and everything, but I didn't really think much beyond
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was all right at that point. Does that make sense anyway?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like you're so right. Like I remember the first time I went traveling, like it was just emails every few days, that was all there is. So
Yeah,
there's only
exactly.
so much people can like visualize and really get an understanding of what it is that you're actually doing. And yeah, first of all, just so super brave to go and move to Australia on on your own at 18. Um,
Can't believe my mum let me do it. Now I look with me having kids, I'm like, I don't think I would do that. I don't think I would let them just off and leave and they were 18.
yeah, you'd probably be going with them, wouldn't you? So yeah, so back to this moment. So you're there and you've started going to it, and like I like the term mega church is just not something I've ever heard before.
I heard of that before. Okay.
No,
You're
no,
gonna have to go on YouTube and, like, have a little Google and see what I'm talking about.
absolutely.
This church in particular, they have, like, music that's won Grammys and stuff like that,
Wow.
they're huge, absolutely massive. I think Justin Bieber went to the church for a while in America when they
Wow.
expanded to America, like, it's honestly massive.
The fact that you're saying
Um,
like thousands of people go, and
well,
it kind of everything you've described so far, and kind of no wonder that there's like this element of like excitement around it, and that it almost feels initially like a safe space to go and have that big community and meet lots of people and have
yeah.
fun. And yeah, so if we jump back in, like, what was your experience of like meeting people there and your initial stages into like going there? Were you going regularly?
Yeah, so I was going really regularly. I mean, so this was kind of how I got into it, but really the church that I would that I'm describing as the cult that I was part of, that was actually in Sheffield, that was in the UK.
Okay.
So when I was in Australia, I was there for 2 years and I was really heavily involved, but and now I look back and I think there was definitely a lot of problems. It was very problematic in a lot of ways, that church. Actually, there's been so much that's come out in the media that have been problems within that church and issues and stuff. So I think they had their own things, but I don't really have much to comment on that because my experience was quite positive, I'd say, all round there. Like I had quite a nice experience, quite a nice time, met really good people, really enjoyed it. But I moved back to England because I had a boyfriend at the time who lived near Sheffield and we'd broken up for a while. But then while I'd been living in Australia, we'd got back together again.
Mm.
And I wanted to, because I grew up in Surrey and he grew up in Yorkshire, and I wanted to live closer to him. So I thought, right, I'm going to move back to England. I'm going to move closer to him, and Sheffield felt like a good place. And I found this church that I'm talking about now. I wanted to find another similar church. So I was really like sucked into that whole culture of it, and I wanted to continue. So I found this church in Sheffield and thought, okay, this one looks quite similar, feels like that same mega church vibe and all of that, and very contemporary. And I thought, I'll give that a go. So that's how I ended up then moving back to England, and then ended up in this church I didn't have such a great experience with, basically.
Mm, mm. Yeah, makes sense. So you'd kind of built those foundations of that belief and kind of,
Yeah.
I suppose if you've had a positive experience in that community, like why wouldn't you want to then try and replicate that back home, when you're building the life that you're having in Sheffield?
Yeah.
Mm. And so then how did things kind of unfold from there?
Yes. So so moved to Sheffield, and it was almost straight away that I just had loads of red flags about this church. So I'd enrolled into like a program. It was almost like it was like a leadership program, I suppose. A bit like a college program. It's hard to explain. It's about leadership, giving you lots of training you in lots of like biblical leadership. Sorry, that's my dog barking. I hope that.
That's okay. And so this course was within the church?
Yeah, it's within the church, and it kind of teaches you like biblical principles of leadership and lots of theology, stuff like that. So that was what I was really interested in at the time. So I was 20 at this point, and I joined up and I thought, right, I'm going to study within this church program and do that for a year or two. So almost immediately when I came, it was just lots of red flags, things that just didn't seem quite right, just cultural things within the church that I thought, this doesn't feel right. It was like our way or the highway. This is how we do it here, and you have to follow suit and you have to do it this way.
Mm.
And it was very counter to what I'd experienced in Australia and like 2 years of church experience that I'd had prior to that. So I just didn't feel quite right about it. And my boyfriend at the time, he was a Christian as well. And so he'd grown up in churches and had loads of experience in churches. And his family, I was really close with his family, and they were saying the same thing to me, like, this doesn't seem right. It seems very odd. They're asking you to do really weird things and seem quite controlling basically over all of your time and that.
Mm. And with those
Yeah.
red flags you mentioned, are you happy to share, like, an example of
Oh, yeah.
yeah, example of one of them?
It was really, like, simple things, like, I was getting told off quite a lot for what I was wearing, stuff like that.
Mm.
So they were telling me, like, "Oh, those shorts you were wearing were inappropriate," and, or, "You're wearing too much you weren't wearing enough makeup," or, "When you come to church on a Sunday, you have to wear high heels," things like that. Just, like, so quite, like, controlling, like, doesn't sound like a big deal, but I feel after having left this place, I've done a lot of research on cults and a lot of yeah, just had my eyes opened a little bit to how they work, and it is they chip away at you,
Mm.
and they pull little things like that.
That's exactly what was coming to mind of like, well, actually, someone trying to control what you wear is quite a big thing. And but like it's those tidbits, like a mention here, a mention there, and then suddenly that's starting to grow potentially a seed of doubt in your mind. Or and did you what was that kind of eliciting like at the time? Because you said you were kind of aware of the red flags, but did you feel like you needed to abide by what they were saying, or were you kind of rebelling against
Yeah.
it?
I was definitely rebelling against it to begin with, and my mum, who's not a Christian or anything, she was very nervous. Whereas when I was in Australia, she was always quite comfortable with me being at that church and stuff. But then when I came to Sheffield, she was like, something doesn't sit right about this and what they're asking you to do and how much of your time that they're demanding from you and the way that they're speaking to you and that just the things that I was telling her, she was like, it doesn't seem right. I think you should stop, quit the course, and just move back home, and you can work out what you want to do off the back of it. But I felt really strongly that I'd started this thing and I needed to see it through,
Mm.
even though I used to spend, like, honestly, like, hours just crying, just being like, "Why am I here? What am I doing?" And I just wish I'd that with hindsight, I wish I'd listened to more people that were in my world because this was obviously the beginning of it, and that was really my get out card, like, within the first couple of months, I could have just kind of gone, "Do you know what? This isn't for me. This isn't right," and I could have just left. But I just felt really compelled that I needed to see through what and just do at least 1 year, and I even said to myself, "Even if I hate every minute of it, at least I've been diligent with what I felt like God is telling me that I should do," which is what I felt at the time because, I mean, this isn't how I feel now or my beliefs now, but at the time, I was definitely, like, very religious and very much believed God was speaking to me about things like this and stuff. And so, I stuck it out and I decided at that point to, right, I'm just gonna instead of rebelling against what they're telling me to do, I'm just gonna do everything that they're telling me to do. So, I'm just going to for and see what happens, and if I really commit to what they're saying and see what happens there. And basically, I noticed a real shift of how people were treating me. So all of a sudden, I wasn't being treated like a rebel. I was being treated like, "Oh, Kat, you're doing quite well here. Oh, I've noticed that you've been doing well. You've done this or you've done," and it's just because I was giving more of myself to them and doing what they said, so they were kind of rewarding me, even just through kind words and
Mm.
saying things and recognizing that stuff. But as a really impressionable and also like a people pleaser, I was such a people pleaser. I wanted everyone to like me and I wanted that recognition as a 20-year-old. I was like, "Oh, right, okay. So actually if I do as they say, that's gonna push me in the right direction here." So yeah.
Mm, mm. You can see how that could almost be a slippery slope of being in that kind of rebellion state and kind of not getting the reaction and feeling a bit lost, and then suddenly you're welcomed in with open arms. Like, I think for anyone that would be like a rush of like love and you feel grateful, but you could see how that could potentially quickly turn into something else.
Yeah, but that is it. It's like everyone wants to feel wanted and
Mm,
important and loved and whatever, and yeah, and so that started feeling quite nice, I suppose, and you're like, "Oh, okay, like, okay, if I keep doing this, then I'll get, some nice recognition," or do you just I hope that makes sense, but it was definitely like my young, naive desperate to be liked and wanted and whatever else, and, not sure who I was, and so, yeah, it was getting that like, kind of, that what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
so like
yeah,
recognition.
recognition, for sure.
Mm.
So I was still with my
Mm.
boyfriend at that time, and then this church, they basically a couple of the leaders at the church had said to me that they thought it was a good idea that I broke up with my boyfriend.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was this boyfriend that I'd had, we'd been on and off for years and years, like since we were teenagers. And I was like, "No, we're going to get married, and he's who I want to be with forever," and all this kind of stuff. And then they'd said to me, "No, we think that it's a good idea for you guys to break up, and that's because." Yeah, he might be a Christian and he might believe in God, but he doesn't go to this church. And so even though he might have the same beliefs as you, fundamentally, he's never gonna be on board unless he comes to this church and he's fully involved and he is going for the same goals as what you are within this church, you're not gonna be aligned, and so it's just not gonna work out. And so I think they'd already at that point got into my head enough, and so I kind of went,
Mm.
"Yeah, no, that is what I want. What I no, they're right. What I want is to be I really wanna do well in this church, and I wanna be a leader in this church, and I wanna," really hard to explain, but, like, it's quite, like, glamorous, these mega churches, the way they work, they're quite glamorous. They really idolize the leadership team. That's quite a big thing. So it's almost like
Uh-huh.
mini celebrity culture in a way.
Mhm.
So the people that are on the stage are the people that you aspire to be like, and you want to be like them, and yeah, and they were pretty much telling me that, and I would never be able to make it to that point, to the upper rungs of the church society, if my partner wasn't alongside of me in the same place and doing the same things. It's just honestly, it's so mad when I talk about this and I think back on it because it's just I just think it's just crazy because obviously now off the out the other side of it, I sound mad set talking about this and as if I can't believe I'm really like I'm very strong-willed and I have a lot of opinions and but I think that's come off the back of this experience of being a bit stronger
Mm.
in what I believe and standing up for myself and very aware to not get sucked in and be told what to think about things. Probably jumping ahead there, but it's just mad listening to myself say this because this is not me.
Yeah. I see that in you, like, reflecting that of, like, you almost these are 2 separate people, like, this experience, and that's, hopefully why it's been such a defining moment is this experience or what we're gonna go on to talk about is gonna have, like, shaped who you are today, but I also suppose wanna give, like, a moment for that version of yourself who, like, you can hear as you're describing the story how things were ramping up and how actually you had a lot of trust in those leaders and they were people you aspired to be. And then if they're suddenly coming to tell you, actually, you're not going to be accepted in the way that you'd like to be if you don't do X, Y, and Z, I'm like, well, yeah, of course, it's going to be really difficult for you to feel like you can push against that.
Yeah.
So I suppose I just want to honor that version of yourself that you were in like a really difficult situation, it sounds like.
Yeah, it definitely was, and like I said, these things happen over months. It's not just you turn up somewhere and they go, "Right, leave your boyfriend at the door. This is your" do you know what I mean? "This is what you need to do," and you just do it. It's a little bit at a time, and it's you give in to those things that they want you to do, and you get rewarded for it, and that's just a natural human response to that, I think, of like, "Oh, that feels good." Yeah, I'm getting rewarded for doing these
Mhm.
things and I'm getting more opportunities or I'm now friends with the right people, like the cool people or the people that are the popular people within the church setting. And, because these are like big churches as well. Again, like there were thousands of people that were members of this church as well. So it was like a big play. So yeah,
Mm,
so
mm,
I broke up with my boyfriend. To everyone in my life who wasn't part of that church were like, what are you doing?
mm,
They all knew how much he meant to me and had assumed that we would just be together forever. So they were like, "What's going on? What on earth? How have you made that decision?" Which was really hard to explain to them because they didn't go to that church. A lot of them weren't Christians as well, and they weren't religious. So they were like, what are you talking about?" So yeah, so I started alienating myself, I think, from my friends and like the people that have been my friends for years and years and years. And that church just took over my life entirely, like, absolutely entirely. I barely saw anyone from home, like my friends that I'd had for years, barely saw my family, and it was just that was my world. Everything was dictated to, like, by the church and what was going on there. I ended up
mm.
dating a guy that was in the dating this guy that was in the church. This is kind of like a whole separate part of the story. And I knew even from when I first met him, I wasn't really that attracted to him or interested in him, but the church were very pushy to make that relationship. Lots of people like, oh, that would be a good relationship and that would work. And it kind of fit their narrative of how you needed to have a partner who was also aligned within the church that, was going to give their all into the church and make their lives solely about, not about God, but about this church.
Mhm.
Um, and so that kind of worked. Anyway, this kind of, I'll fast forward a little bit here because there's a lot of, I could talk for hours about it. But we ended up getting engaged and it
Mm.
was all very quick. And my mum was terrified. She was like, what are you doing? At the time, I think I was 22 when I got engaged. My mum,
Mm. So have you been in this church for about 2
yeah,
years at that
about 2
point?
years
Yeah.
when we got engaged. And she was just like very skeptical. She never liked this guy. She just had such, again, red flags about him on a relationship level, which I also had,
Mm.
but I just quietened them down because I was like, no, this makes sense for me. This makes sense for my life and what I want to achieve in this church and everything else. And yeah, and at that time, my mum also got diagnosed with cancer. So and it was quite bad. Like we weren't sure what was going to happen with her health and if she would
Mm.
survive the diagnosis. And so there was a part of me as well when we got engaged, even though I knew this isn't right. I'm not happy at all in the slightest. I don't want to be with this person. There was a lot of other stuff, emotional things going on, and with my mum being sick and everything, I was like, "Oh, well, I want my mum to see me get married and everything."
Mhm.
Just as a side note, my mum made a full recovery, and she's, been in remission for a long
She does lots of yoga.
time. Yeah, she does do a lot of yoga. I don't know if you can call what she does yoga,
Yeah.
though. Lots of chatting and
Lots about the yoga studio.
she's at the studio a lot, yeah, that's
Yeah.
but yeah, so she's doing really well. But yes, anyway,
Mm.
and things just got worse in my relationship with this guy, and it was really bad. And actually, it became really abusive. It was the coercive control from him was really bad. And yeah, it just turned into an incredibly abusive relationship in a lot of different ways. Um, and
Mm.
in the back of my mind, I just kept thinking, well, maybe when we get married, it won't be as bad and it will be okay. And his insecurities about me and about our relationship will really quieten down because then we'll be married. And so, I don't know how much more of a commitment you can make with someone. Uh,
Mhm. And, the concerns that you had around his behavior and your relationship, were those just in your mind, or were you able to kind of express those anywhere
I
to
definitely
anyone?
expressed them. At that point, it was a little bit more subtle. I think I was a bit nervous to fully tell people what was really going on. And people saw it and were a bit like, because I had a few good friends at this church who were very similar to me, and I think we had a lot of, like, even though we were fully, like, sold out to this church and this vision and really on board with it, we were quite skeptical about everything that was actually also going on, and we did used to question a lot of stuff, like, do we think that that's right and everything else, and so I had a few friends who would kind of question and be like, "Is everything okay?" And you don't but I was just very much like, "Nope, fine, fine, everything's fine." The thought at
Mm.
that point of
Mhm.
breaking off an engagement was almost, like, embarrassing, and I felt I just didn't wanna have to go through that. And also, it was such a nice distraction from my mum's cancer, like, it was really a nice thing, even though my mum was desperate for me to not marry this person, it was like, we were talking about wedding dresses and nice.
Yeah. And I suppose like a level of you get a level of certainty with that you maybe didn't have with knowing how your mum would recover or if she would recover. And whereas like a wedding is like a level of like, this is happening and
Yeah,
it's stereotypically like a good
yeah.
thing, but even if it didn't necessarily feel
It's a
good
happy
for you
day,
at that
isn't it?
time.
If nothing, you know what I mean? It's
Mm.
like yeah, it was just a good distraction, I think, and so
Mm.
but yeah, I almost didn't wanna let myself believe there was another option. It was like, I just have to make this work, and this relationship has to work like, for almost my ambition of where I wanted to be within that church and whatever. It felt like I have to be aligned with another person who wants that as well. And so this is our only choice. This is our only option for us to be together and to make this work and achieve what we want to achieve, like religiously in the church for God, whatever it might. I don't know if that makes much sense. I mean, there was a lot of earnest feelings there into it. It wasn't totally selfish. Like I really did want. I was working for a charity that also was run through the church at the time. The church employed me to work for this charity, and I felt really passionately
Mhm.
about that. It was like a rehab for women, and I felt really passionately about working for that, and I loved that. And so, yeah, it's a lot more to it, but I just felt that was kind of like my calling, I suppose, that I needed to achieve, and I needed to have a partner who was also aligned with that as well.
Mm,
So
mm.
even though there was all this stuff going on, but also because it was a Christian and it was church, we didn't live together before we got married. So all of
Okay.
this stuff that was going on, I thought would be sorted when we got married, but obviously we got married and it just got a hell of a lot worse. As you can probably
Mm,
imagine, having not even lived with a person before them, marrying them, yeah, you
mm.
couldn't do that. That was not a thing that the church would allow you to do to yeah, it's
Wow.
covering.
That is like, excuse the turn of phrase, but it feels like such a leap of faith to marry someone without having like and this is coming from like obviously myself, I'm not
Mhm.
religious, so I would call myself spiritual but not
Yeah,
religious, but like to a big leap of faith to want to live
yeah,
with someone and try and build, a relationship on a foundation like you're not even sure what necessarily the foundations
exactly. You
are.
don't even know them. You
Um
do not know them. You know what I mean? I just think I had
mm.
an inkling of who this person was. And honestly, I'm gonna have to say it, but I look back and what was I thinking? I don't ever think this was gonna end well, like, honestly. I was so right. It's just such a I think feel like it's such a, like, t kind of what's the word? Like, a testimony, like, it backs it up of how wrapped up in this you get, that it really warps
Yeah.
your thinking and all of
Well, if you're working there, like, all your community was there, or like the majority of your community, your partner, like there's leaders who are almost like celebrities, and you're aspiring to kind of progress within that
well,
community. Like it kind of almost it's the visual I'm getting is like being surrounded. Like that how do you see out of that if it's everywhere
yeah,
you look?
and they really like the
Challenging.
theology and the way that they speak, it just gets really really gets into your head, and you just don't see any other way. It just all makes sense to you, and yeah, it's crazy how you can
Mm.
be really indoctrinated by some of this stuff. And it
Mhm.
feels like they back it up as well with, like, the Bible, and they're telling you to do things or asking you to do stuff and give this much of your life or your money or, whatever it might be. But yeah, it was really crazy. It was really mad. We ended up getting
Um,
married, and then, yeah, we got married, and then almost immediately as soon as we got married, again, it just got worse in terms of the relationship, and it was really awful. It was honestly just some of the worst months I'd say of my life ever, and I was really scared. I was scared to go home. I was scared of what he was going to do, what he would say, how he would react to certain things, and it was just awful. And that's when I started opening up a little bit more to the leaders in the church. So at this point, I
mhm.
kind of knew that the church was a little bit mad, and at that point, I probably wouldn't have described it as a cult at all. I was too wrapped up in it to have seen that at that point. And yeah, so I'm really sorry. Can you hear my dog barking, going crazy?
I can, but we love dogs on this podcast, so don't worry. A little bit of background dog barking.
It might be a while that he keeps going, so I do apologize
That's fine. I thought he was sensing the energy of the mad church and was just like
for it in the room. So yeah, yes. So I'm just trying to think where I was at. So yeah,
You were saying you were opening up to the lead, like, you kinda had this sense like it was a bit not right, and you were opening up to the
a few
leaders,
things
yeah.
happened within the relationship in terms of abusive things that had happened, and I just thought I've got to tell someone that this is going on. So I went to the leaders in the church and told them a few things, or one in particular that I was really close to her, and she was like, "Okay, this doesn't sound right. That's not okay that that's happening." let's try and work through it. You know, as you would, a bit of like kind of almost like counseling and talking together. And then we
Mm.
went on a family holiday with my family, and I was so bitterly unhappy and was just thinking, what have I done? Like, this is the biggest mistake I've ever made. And yeah, it was awful. I went on this holiday and it just kind of all bubbled on this holiday because I didn't really get to spend much time with my family. And so when I did, I felt like I could actually be myself again. And
Mhm.
I remember, yeah, on this holiday, it just kind of all hit me that how I actually felt and how wrong this relationship was and everything that was happening and how actually none of this was okay. And it was like the veil kind of lifted a little bit off my from my eyes. So I addressed it with
Mm.
him directly on this holiday, and it just all hit the fan and was awful. And but I felt safe because I had my mum there and I had my stepdad there, and I felt like I was protected. Okay.
Mhm.
Then when we got back from this holiday, he moved in with his parents, and we started to almost have like some counseling with the church. And that started off really well. I would say they were really supportive because I was coming out and saying, right, all this stuff has been happening behind closed doors. It's not okay. And they agreed with me, like, no, this is that you're totally right. Like, this is not okay for someone to be doing X, Y, and Z. But he was fundamentally kind of, even though they were sat there saying, you can't do that to her. His view was very like this old traditional biblical view of, well, I'm she's my wife and I can do what I want. Like, that's how it works.
Mm.
And I was like, and they were like, that's not how it works. You can't do these things. No, I can't. And then
Yeah.
I remember him saying once after this he was told very, very directly that it was not okay what was happening. And his response was, we'll just have to agree to disagree on it. So that was kind of where
God.
we
Wow.
were at with all of that
Mm.
stuff. And I knew, like, deep down, I was like, I never wanted to be with him in the first place. Like, I think I thought I did, but when I look back at it, I was like, no, I definitely have never wanted to be with this person. And the stuff that's going on and how he's treating me is so unbelievably wrong on so many so many levels. It's just time. I don't want to continue. So anyway, so the church were very supportive of that at the beginning, but then after a couple of weeks, they began getting really frustrated with me because I was very much not doing what they were like. Okay, have a couple of weeks apart, and then we'll put you back together, and it will all be fine. But obviously,
Say it's just not the soundest
well,
advice, but
but
okay.
obviously that wasn't the case. And I was like,
Mm.
No, there are so many fundamental issues in this relationship. If it was to work, he would have to completely change everything that he believes. And I don't see that. I didn't see a world in which he was ever gonna change. And yeah, I knew it was wrong. So anyways, gradually over time, so this was probably over the space of about 3 months. I just started to slowly realize what I was in. And this is when I started realizing that I'm in a cult. Um, they had
Mm.
told me like I needed to cut my mum off and I needed to not speak to my mum at all.
Wow.
I shouldn't speak to any friends that don't exist within the church, but even certain friends that were within that church that they thought didn't weren't fully on board with how they viewed things. They were like, "Don't speak to that." Like one person in particular, they were like, "Don't speak to her about it. You need to only speak to this person and this person about any of this stuff. He needs to move back in with you, and you need to just like move on and crack." Because we had like a leadership role within the church as well, so that we were part of their leadership team. And that's when I started going, okay, this is really wrong. And I started getting pulled into meetings quite frequently with the guy who ran the church, the senior pastor, where he would honestly, like, these meetings would be 3, 4 hours long, and he would just go at me, criticize me, say to me, you want to leave your husband. This is the equivalent of what example did he use? Really funny. He said to me once, it's like someone going to war in Afghanistan, coming back with their legs blown off, and you just say, well, I don't want to be with you anymore because you don't have legs anymore.
Oh
That
my gosh,
it was really
that must have been so intense. Yeah, so difficult. And like the word manipulative comes to mind of just almost like torture, like trying to get you into these spaces and like brainwash you
Yeah,
into submission,
honestly,
essentially.
total brainwashing, total gaslighting, manipulation, the works. It was bullying
Mm,
as well. It was just downright like bullying. And I'm, at this point, 23-year-old girl in a office with a man who's in his 50s being scolded and told off and like basically being intimidated and threatened. So he then threatened to take my job away from me because I was working for them, charity that I
mm.
mentioned, which he actually did. So I got fired, which, obviously, which is also crazy to think about. I got fired from that job because he said that the women that were in the program would end up back on drugs because they would see how I can't stick to that I'm not a good example, basically. So like they would follow suit and they'd end up back on drugs and back on the streets because of me. And honestly, absolutely deluded nonsense, absolute nonsense. But because he was just spiraling
Yes.
and I was seeing like the true colors of what this church actually believed and stood for and how much of a cult it was that everyone just idolized this guy that was in leadership and he said jump and everyone
Mhm.
said how high and all this stuff he was coming everything he said to me, it was just confirmation more and more of, okay, so I just started being like, time for me to back out. I need to get divorced and I need to leave this church. Like I just need to get out. And at that point, it sealed it for me. Honestly, there's so much more that happened and there are so many more crazy stories of things that were said to me or done, but I'd have to this would have to become like a five-parter to go into it. So I'm not get
Maybe we'll do a whole series.
honestly, it's just like this is so the tip of the iceberg of what happened. So at that point, I was just like really and when they were like, "You can't speak to your friends, you can't speak to your family about any of this because no one's gonna be helpful. You just need to speak to us about it." They were just so worried about saving face on their behalf and whatever else. So I made the decision,
I was just saying, like, I'm hearing like such a almost like resilience on your part that you were able to you had that strong will to recognize and you felt, luckily you had those connections with your family where you felt safe enough to start backing away because what I would fear is that someone who was maybe further along and didn't had broken off contact, that's exactly like when you say the word cult,
yeah,
it's like, well, yeah, because you suddenly
you're
don't have
alone.
anywhere to go and that is your life. Like, how do you escape
And I was
that?
so lucky that,
Mm,
like, my mum had always said to me that she had never really spoken out massively about how she felt about everything because she was so worried that that was it, she'd just lose me for good. And at one point, if she
mm.
had, I definitely would have just cut her off and been like, "Well, that's the right," and they would have definitely have said, "Yeah, no, that's the right thing to do as well, for sure."
So how did you so you're at this kind of like pivotal moment. How did you then you've been fired from that job, which sounds like they kind of did you a favor in the long run. How did you then start almost like extracting yourself
Yeah,
from
so
that?
I just said, "This is it. We're done. We're breaking up. We're getting divorced. That's it." They pulled me in for like another meeting where they like berated me. Like it was just awful, horrible thing. And I just had to be like, "That's it. Line in the sand." And I just left, and I just didn't go back to that. Didn't take it like a foot inside, stepped inside that church anymore. I just didn't go back. Then this is when things got even crazier. Just you think, "Okay, that's it, job done. Everyone, like, let's move on,
No, no.
heal, whatever else." So they, at that point, started spreading really malicious and just slanderous stuff about me. They had, like, a church meeting, with hundreds of people who attended the church where they spoke about me publicly in front of them and called me they used Bible verses against me, said that I was an immoral woman, and that in the Bible it says they use a specific Bible verse, which I can't remember what it was now, but it was along the totally out of context, obviously. Christians
Mm.
love to do that. So yeah, totally out of context Bible verse saying that I was an immoral woman and we shouldn't break bread with an immoral woman. So they basically put a ban of everybody that nobody was allowed to see or speak to me, even tweet me, whatever it might be, for a minimum of 3 months because they needed to punish me for my decision to walk out on my marriage, even though that wasn't really the case. I was in a very abusive marriage, and it needed to end because it wasn't
For your
for
safe
my
for yeah, for your safety. And it's so, I find it so difficult to reconcile. And this is like a level of, I mean, there's like millions of Netflix series and things, and but just to reconcile, even in like where we both live, there would be an organization which is supposed to be looking after people and helping people find purpose, that would expose a young woman or any
yeah,
person to such a level of abuse. Like, it's just absolutely
justify it
wild.
for the sake of face and whatever else.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. It's awful, isn't it? It's so bad. So yeah, so everyone cut me off, didn't speak to me. There were people who I would say were like, some of my closest friends that had been like best friends to me, and they just and I have never spoken to them ever again since that. And this was gosh, when was that? 2012. So a long time ago now. Never spoke to me, and that was it. Just that the end. One of my best friends there, she decided that she would keep seeing me and would keep coming round, but she also worked in that same rehab, and they threatened her job. So they'd said to her, "If you speak to Kat or you spend time with Kat, you will also lose your job as well." So she used to come and visit me, but she'd park her car like 3 streets away so that no one would see her
Wow,
car
bless.
outside the house,
Yeah.
because she was like, "I can't afford to lose this job." She left quite quickly as well, because she also, after seeing what happened to me and then how they then spoke to her and threatened her job and stuff, she was like, "Okay, I need to also leave this place. It's crazy." We're friends today, so
Mm.
that's nice.
Oh,
Yes. Really nice. So, yeah, so I left, and just I very quickly really realized that what I'd been a part of. And yeah, I got divorced and everything else, and it was honestly, that was probably the toughest time. I'd say the year or so afterwards was really, really hard. I felt so wronged, and I felt so like I wanted to get justice, and it didn't stop. And like my ex, the guy I was married to, his family were just like, honestly, they weren't very nice. And yeah, and I mean, I'm sure they're fine now, but at the time, it was just horrible. Like what I messages I'd receive of people, like hateful, spiteful, horrible messages, and I was like, "You don't know, none of you have a clue of what's actually just happened here." But I
mm.
just felt so grateful that I'd got out, because ultimately
Yeah.
I spent it was only 3 years that I was there for, and even though it's 3 years that I just wish had never happened, I just felt so grateful that I was out, and I didn't have to be with this guy anymore, and I didn't have to be in this crazy place anymore. I didn't have to be there, and it was really freeing. Sorry, we've spoken for so long about all of that. There's so much positivity and light and gorgeous stuff that's happened since then, that the defining
Yeah.
moment of, like, you know what I mean? So I'd love to talk about that, so it's not all doom and
No, I know. But I think also, like, it's just fascinating. And like, I think as we've heard you explain, like, it's not a simple story. So I think like it deserves that time to explore it. And like, yeah, like just like, oh, I feel like the gratitude of just the fact that you were able to remove yourself from that situation. And you almost lived an entire life within those three
absolutely, yeah.
years. And then some. And so how did you then go about kind of rebuilding or rediscovering who Kat was after that
I would
experience?
say it has taken, like, 10, 12 years, like, to really work it all out, because I definitely, off the back of that, threw myself into all the things I felt like I'd missed out on. So, like, in the church, you didn't really, like, drink and stuff like that, so I was just but before that, I used to love to party a lot. So all of a sudden,
Mm.
I had 3 years where I didn't really, like, do much drinking or going out or whatever, so I just, like, was like, "Right, that is it. I'm just gonna be drunk the whole
Catching up
time."
for lost time.
And I really did. I really caught up for lost time, so that was amazing. And I just started, like, reconnecting with old friends that I had almost, like, lost along the way and cut them out a little bit, and I made a lot of apologies to people for, kind of how I behaved and who I felt like I'd turned into that wasn't me. So I rebuilt, like, old relationships, which was really lovely. And then I just really started thinking about this is we're talking over, like, 10 so years, and I met my now husband, Tom, and he's brilliant and he's great and was so understanding through all of this and has been such a good support to me through all of it. And I really started like discovering like what is it that I believe, not what someone has told me that I should believe or what the Bible means or everything like that. And I found what I've discovered off the back of it is just so freeing. So I'm now I am still, like I'd say, I describe myself as a really spiritual person. I don't necessarily believe in God. I would not at all describe myself as a Christian. I have a lot of knowledge of the Bible because I did study it for a good few years and things, and I really respect people who have religious beliefs. I think it's beautiful when you have a faith or you have something that you believe in, as long as it doesn't hurt other people or damage other people. I feel really
Um,
strongly about that. But what I found now is I'm just really comfortable in who I am, in what I believe, and having really open and frank conversations with people about things like religion and about spirituality. And one of the main things I've learned is that it's all a journey constantly. And I have changed what I believe countless times. And I'm open to change what I believe for the rest of my life going forward. Like I'm
mm,
open to listening to other people's views and opinions on things and then listening and taking it on board and then deciding what I make of that and what's true to me. Because what's true to them is true to them, might not be true to me. And that's okay. We can all live in peace and harmony together, respecting each other's beliefs. And I just really find that I don't have any answers. Whereas I think when I was like 20, I thought I had all the answers. I think a lot of people in their
wow.
20s think that as well, but especially the religious setting that I was in, I was like, right, that's it. I've got all the answers now. Whereas now I'm really comfortable of just not having the answers. And I love not having the answers. I love that I don't have a clue. Maybe God is real. Maybe the Bible is real. And, maybe that is what it is. Who knows? But there's a real beauty in like not knowing. And
I really love that. Like, oh, that really like resonated with me. Like, there's just this, what's coming up for me is like, there's this sense of like, because maybe you know yourself better, there's not that need to have lots of answers. I'm wondering, does that feel like right? That was just like what resonated for me of like, you're happy to sit in the unknown because you know who you are, you have that stability, you've got your partner and your family and the things that you love, and
yeah,
you don't have leaders
no,
trying to
exactly.
trying to tell you what is and isn't
Yeah,
right.
exactly, and I think that's wonderful, like, if you can get to that point of being not closed off to things, but because there's so much amazing stuff out in the world and so many views and opinions and experiences to be had, you just shut yourself off, I think, if you decide, "No, this is the right way, this is the only right thing," and I also think you're setting yourself up for a bit of failure if, like, that somehow that then like what happened to me in that church, it all came crashing down. Well, it was only 3 years, but I just think of some people that have been in those situations for 30 years, and your whole life is built on something, and then it literally crashes and the rug is pulled out from beneath you. You're almost setting yourself up for a bit of failure there. So anyway, just in my opinion, like, I mean, each their own. Like, I think that's what's lovely, and I've really learned now to not be dictated to by people as well. So I'll never let someone tell me what to think, in especially when it comes to my spirituality and my experience.
Mhm.
My experience is based off my experience and what I believe, and you can't take that away from me, and you can't tell me. So I just question a lot of what people say. Like, I'm a lot more critical. I'm a lot more of a critical thinker than I was, and I've learned that off the back of this experience. If someone says something to me, and I might automatically be like, "That really resonates," but then I will take time to,
Mm.
like, really think it over and unpack it a little bit more for myself. Well, that might be true for that person. What does it mean to me? Same in the other way. If it's something that I really automatically disagree with, I'd maybe take that home and think about that, mull over that a little bit. Well, why do I really disagree with it? Well, what about it is wrong to me? Do you see what I mean? I think that's how that church experience and that cult experience really defined who I am and how I
Mm.
think today and how I view the world today. And yeah, I think it initially made me a really hardened me and made me really like angry as well. Like it's been a long journey,
Mhm.
but now it's completely softened me. I have no bitterness towards that church now. This hour might sound as if I'm really bitter and hate everyone and everything like that, but I can promise you that's not the case. It was however many years ago, but I don't have those hard feelings or bitterness, or I've definitely like forgiven those people in those situations. Not for them,
Yeah.
for me. I've done that for myself, for my own peace, so that I can
Mm.
make peace with what I went through, be thankful for what I went through and what it taught me. And for years I was really embarrassed by it. I didn't want to ever tell people that I'd managed to get, because when people found out, they're like, "What? You seem like a really rational, sane person. How were you involved in something like that?" Which is really hard to kind of explain to people when they've not had that experience
Mm.
themselves. So it's definitely been a work in progress. And then eventually, like years and years later, that church doesn't really exist anymore because a lot of stuff came out about that church, which pretty much made it crumble. And a lot of people spoke out about their experience, similar experiences to me. Some people went through honestly so much worse than what I went through as well, which is hard to imagine.
Gosh,
Yeah,
that's
but a
really
lot
yeah.
my experience wasn't alone. I wasn't alone in that. And, there was a lot of deep-rooted racism in that church as well, which that actually is what I think made it like, it's in the news, so, like, if you were to Google it, you'd pull up stuff for sure, and there was a lot of, like, awful racism going on. I think that was kind of going on while I was there, but I wasn't necessarily I didn't see that myself. Maybe more kind of bubbled up after my time when I left, and then it all blew up. You know, in the wake of, the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of people in that
Mm,
community
mm.
found their voices to be able to speak out about it finally, and so then that happened. I think that's what pretty much that's what made that church kind of fall down and whatever else, and I think now it's splintered off into whatever it is now, and I wish them all well.
Mm.
I hope they've learned their lessons and they don't treat people like that anymore.
I think it's yeah, it's difficult. I have to say I'm glad that they've been exposed, for the cruelty and the hate and the manipulation and everything you've suffered, but also it sounds like multiple members of the community have suffered at the hands of those people, that group. But what I thought was really incredible is the way that you talk about like the forgiveness and the way that you've processed, but so beautifully talking about how you've done it for yourself, not for anyone else. And I think that is just so utterly incredible and powerful. And I know we're coming towards the end of our time together, but I am wondering, was there any tools or any ways that you supported yourself to move through that, or was it just simply time?
I think time was the main thing. I thought I'd healed a year afterwards. I thought, "No, it's fine. I'm over it. I put it all behind me." And then a lot of it bubbled up again, I'd say about 10 years after I left. It just like I
Mm,
don't something triggered it. I can't remember what it was, but something triggered it, and it really made me have to reprocess everything. Talking about it really helped. Also, it was really hard to do, but at the beginning, when all I wanted to do was shout from the rooftops my experience and what had happened to me, and, because you're just like, "I've been wronged. I've been like, this is so like, the
mhm,
justice is not there," and I think keeping quiet at those points was really important, and almost allowing all of that to happen and working through it in the quiet. So, quiet conversations with my friends, family, with my husband, really processing and working through it. And then I think it was 10 years afterwards when that church, like, did crumble and, like, fall to pieces, the people who were in the leadership of the church invited me to have a conversation with them and tell them my
well,
experience of what I went through, as in so it wasn't the leadership that they'd been, like, kicked out, and it was, like, the new leadership. They
mhm,
wanted to learn from their mistakes, basically. And
mm,
that was really healing. I had, like a 2-hour conversation with them where I just told them everything that I'd experienced and how it affected me and impacted me, and that was really helpful. I would say talking was really, really good. Doing my own quiet meditations, doing I honestly as well, I don't wanna be someone that bangs on about it, but yoga has really helped me. But, like,
mm,
having that space, there's something really magical about yoga that I found that with the mind mind and body connection of that really helped me process things. I think when you're really practicing yoga and you're really getting into your practice, you can really you almost enter this like this thought space that's deeper than what you have just when you're driving to work. And
Mhm.
does that make sense? You'll know what I mean by that because you know
Yeah, yes, and I suppose for anyone listening who's kind of maybe not experienced yoga is the way I could describe it is like a level of like such a level of presence that yeah, like you wouldn't get when driving the
what
car because you're using the like breath work and and the movement and you're really getting into your body even if you're not thinking about say a
yeah,
traumatic event or something that's happened. I feel like certainly for me, like the body processes it and then you just it starts to give you this level of like understanding that maybe you wouldn't have had if yeah,
that's
you'd
it.
just had to avoid thinking about it or yeah, thought about it on the way to work or
Yeah.
something. It's just another
It
level.
almost like
Mm.
lets me access a part of my brain and my spirituality in a way that lets things go. It just lets things go.
Ah,
And I can go into a class and feel really angry and then leave the class and feel like I've left that behind. Even though I've not gone in with the intention of it's not like, oh, right, well, that thing that happened to me 10 years ago that was really traumatic. I want to, in this class, I want to, work through that. That's not what I'm doing. That's not what happens. But it's been just a gradual process. And yeah, and I think I don't really have any really good tips for it because I think time is I do think it's such a cliche, but I do think time is the best healer for anything.
mm.
And also just having really taking stock of where my life is now and who I am now. And as much as I wish that hadn't happened, I just wouldn't be the person I am now if I hadn't have experienced those things. And I wouldn't have my husband that I have now and my children and so much amazing goodness has come. Like, honestly, so much goodness and my life is really amazing. I have such an amazing, beautiful life, and it's my life that I have carved for myself. I haven't been told what to do or what to think or what, anything like that. It's what I've created it, well, alongside of my husband, obviously. But, like, we've
Wow.
created this life, and, I'm just incredibly grateful for it. I think gratefulness really helps healing as well. It's like when,
Mm.
me and my husband always say this of like there've been times where a bill, like a bill comes through. I feel like you can equate this to a financial thing. Like a bill comes through that you weren't expecting. Oh, it's so
Mhm.
annoying. I have to pay this £1,000 thing for whatever's happened. That's so annoying. But instead of looking at, like, the bill that you have to pay, it's recognizing all the times where you've been given something. And if you start looking at that rather than the bill that has to come out, it really is like a massive like, it can really change your perspective massively, and I feel like that's what I've managed to really focus in on over the last, like, 10 decade, really, of praising it, of like, "Well,
Mm.
that was really horrible and really rubbish, and that experience I went through was very traumatic in so many ways." But I'm not choosing to focus on the trauma of it, I'm choosing to focus on the beauty that has come since. Yeah, and when you focus on that, it does lighten the load, for sure.
Mm. That's so beautiful. I don't wanna add anything because that is just it's so I love it, and it's so uniquely your experience, but we have yeah, I think there's so much wisdom in there as well about mindset and how we can process and how we can perceive things. Oh, it's been an absolute joy to have
Oh,
you, and I feel like we could do a mini series or a big not mini series on everything, and I hope, yeah, anyone listening has not only found it really, I suppose, interesting to hear your story, but also like the incredible things that you've taken away from and learnt from that experience. And there's just a final question that I ask everyone who comes on here, which I'd love to ask you, which is, what would you say to past you? So past Cat standing
mm.
on the edge of that defining period.
Oh gosh, good question. I think I would say trust yourself. You know what is best, even when everyone else is telling you that you're doing something wrong. Trust yourself and trust your gut, and it will all work out. It will all work. Although I'm saying that, but I think I didn't really need to hear that, to be honest with you, because I knew that. So I don't know if that is what I would say, because I think I did know to trust myself at that point when I was like stepping away from it all. Yeah, I think, but I do. Maybe that's not what I'd say. This is a really hard question. I don't know what I would say.
Take your time. Yeah, if you need a
I've
minute
just
to
gone back
think.
on that because I'm like, actually, I probably didn't need to hear that because I was like, I knew that that was the right choice. So I just like, well, I
Mm,
was quite determined at that point. I think I would probably say it does sound like a massive, massive cliche, but just like it will all work out. It does all work out. Maybe I would say pain that you're gonna go through now is worth it in the end. And it's refining
mhm,
that the pain is worth it because what you will reap off the back of it is gonna be amazing. And nothing good is ever no, that's not the saying. Nothing good nothing what's that saying that's like, it's worth nothing, not worth this is not making any sense. Not worth having isn't worth fighting
fighting
for.
for, is it that one? Yeah.
You know the saying I'm trying to say, do you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I think that would be what I'd say. That's a bit of a rubbish answer, I feel. I'm really sorry I haven't been able to articulate myself well with that.
No, I just feel like you were figuring it out as you went, and like that's just the mind doing its thing. So we're saying it's I can't remember the exact saying either, but it's like something worth having is worth
Yeah,
fighting for.
exactly,
Is that
exactly. It all works out and it will all be fine.
it
It
all
will
works
all be
out.
fine. That's it, yeah. I think that does sound such a
Mm.
cliche because I think that that's what most people would look back at and say to themselves, like, it will be okay." But I think
But we don't know that in the moment, do we? And I think the reason these things often feel like cliches is because it's like it's happened for a lot of us, but it's still in the moment we haven't learnt that and learnt
mm,
like that deep trust I feel like you've cultivated and yeah, where you've been you're a testament to that of like where you are today and like clearly the joy that you feel in life and
mm,
the community and the family that you have around you is testament to that. It is worth it and you're gonna get to where you need to be if you
yeah,
trust.
exactly. It will all be worth all of the pain. It will all make sense in the end. I think that's it as well. Sometimes when we're in the middle of things that are really hard, it's like, "This doesn't make any sense. Why is this happening?" And sometimes shit just happens. Oh,
Yes,
cool.
swear away.
Good. If I'd known that, this would have been full of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, sometimes like shit just happens and there isn't really a reason for it. But sometimes it just takes 10 years to see the reason for it. So
Mm, mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
all good.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for being on Define. It's been incredible having you here, and I don't want to call your story fascinating because obviously it's a
Right,
traumatic story for
right.
you, but like it's just I think it's incredible to see like the journey that you've been on and that the journey that you're still on. And so yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
It's definitely made me a better person, definitely made me a much better mum than I ever would have been without that experience as well, and just better all around. Thank you so much for having me
Well,
and letting me ramble on for ages.
it's what exactly what this space is for.
A little bit of therapy.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, thank you so much. Been honestly a pleasure to have you. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Define. I hope this story reminded you of your own strength, your own shifts, your own becoming. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and journey on. Hi again, it's Maddie, time traveling directly into your ears to give you a gentle nudge to get in on the knowing. The waitlist is open and you'll find the link in the show notes. Go on, I'll see you there.